Welcome everybody to Region 5's Town Hall. My name is Steve LeClaire. I am the Regional Vice President for Sales for Oldcastle in the Western United States. I don't know many of you because I'm relatively new to Region 5. Previously, I had been part of leadership in RAC 4. In my new role, I've taken on much of the Western United States, and it's been fantastic so far to begin to work with this group and see what both what kind of challenges we've got set before us and what kind of success that we can create in terms of what we're able to do with Checkoff. I do need to start off by sharing a big thank you to Joe Kerrigan and to Tom Finch as our former chair and vice chair. They don't get off the hook that easily. They're still part of this. They're still part of this group and still part of the regional advisory committee. But it's great to. It's been great to learn from them and to be able to share in their leadership as we move forward. From a Region 5 perspective, we are represented well on the board, both by Kendall Andrig, Mike Finch, and Brian Austin as an alternate, and then Eric Absalon as an executive committee member. And then you see our regional advisory committee members listed below that. I won't go through everybody's names, but I will mention that Josh Hammer had volunteered to step up as vice chair, and he, along with myself, have been learning from Joe and Tom through this whole process. I also have to give a big shout out to Leanne, the rest of the group in terms of the representation that we've got and the participation that we've got across producers, across state association directors, and of course across Masons as well. You know, the whole reason that we're here today is to give everybody a little bit better snapshot of what's been going on in Region 5 from an investor perspective. So you're going to hear both from regional leadership as well as national leadership. We've got a presentation that we've laid out, and I hope that we find it informative. We've allowed time at the end for questions and answers. We hopefully want to have a lively discussion at that point in time. But what I will say is any of the names that you see on this list right now, if you've got concerns, if you've got ideas, if you've got success stories to share, reach out to all the folks on this group, because as a regional advisory committee, we can't do it on our own. As a national team, they can't do it on their own. Ultimately, you as investors are part of this organization and will help drive forward what will be success for Checkoff in the future. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kim.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this discussion as well. I think Region 5 is doing some really creative things with codes and different things. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of those successes with you all. Before we get into that, I just want to share what our strategic plan looks like as a reminder of why the Checkoff is here. And then also some shifts that we're making that the board discussed in May. So as we look at our mission of what the Checkoff is around for, it's really to drive demand for locally made concrete products. And our objectives, there's 4 objectives that we typically strive towards. One is driving market share for CMU. Another one is increasing our acceptance by our customer being the engineers, the architects, and contractors, and helping them be more comfortable and more willing to use masonry on their projects. The third thing is augmenting our Checkoff dollars. I think Region 5 might have my most favorite example with the codes effort, partnering with a lot of the local associations to really make this happen in conjunction with the Checkoff. And so we're always looking for other ways that we can maximize our financial impact. And the fourth one is the reason we're here today is to help demonstrate what the Checkoff is doing and how it's impacting block producers and contractors. And so this is the shift that we're making that the board met in May, and we are just really learning from some of the developments we've started with in the past couple of years and really driving those forward into being making improvements and being more aligned and better at what we're doing. And so the board that things they came up with is to be more nationally aligned with the programs that are working, but still regionally very activated. We want the regions to still tell us where those programs are going to be most effective. So the goal in all of it is to build demand, convert that new demand into adoption of products, which in turn will drive growth. So you can see our mission is the same, drive demand for locally made concrete products. And our vision really is to stabilize our position, grow our share, and expand our future. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to really focus towards all of our programs working together more in unison than they have in the past. And we're looking at places where we can focus on high volume and strong position. And so you can see there at the top of this funnel that you're looking at is codes. And codes, the goal of codes is going to be expand the market in which we can sell into. Then marketing will take that expanded market and activate engineers and architects to utilize into those markets. Then we want education really to influence the engineers and architects, make them more comfortable and confident in using masonry in all of their projects. All of these funneling down into design assistance, where we're creating conversion on real projects, which increase block in the market. Now you'll see there on the left, research kind of being throughout all pieces of this funnel. So I really like to think of it as a thread that can really affect any piece or part of this funnel where we need support and facts to drive our initiatives forward. The other thing the board did decide on in May was 3 priority segments. And the goal in this is to really target our message and our efforts into a smaller, narrower focus that really gives us more of that rifle approach, really helps us hone in and be effective where we can be. And so we're looking at public buildings, which include K through 12. And the reason public buildings is on this list is it's a high volume market, but it's also a strong position for us today. The second one is warehouses, medium-sized warehouses, less than 100,000 square feet. And that's essentially because we can play in that market today. It is probably the highest volume, and it's an opportunity for growth for us. Now we're not talking about the Amazons and the data centers. We're talking more about the Costcos and the Targets, because we have the installation efficiency today for that size building. We're going to continue to look at improvements to where we can move into those larger warehouses in the near future. And the last one is single family residential. You'll see there it says Florida first, then coastal markets. The goal in that is Florida is working on some codes work that could really change their market by expanding the code requirement for hurricane force winds farther north into Florida. And once they do that, we really feel like we could push that initiative across the coast of Texas and up through the Carolinas, all the way into the Northeast. And then longer term inland into the rest of the country. So those are our 3 priority segments that are really going to help us focus our resources, our messaging, and our efforts into a more narrow part of the funnel. And then we also have that the board decided on an activation plan. So they're really looking at how do we convert demand into adoption with an investment strategy. And so you see there, the top 3 items were the same 3 that you saw on the top of the funnel. And that's 60% of our programs are going to go into building demand. The bottom 41% is going to be working towards converting that to adoption. So what's changed? Really, we're just aligning programs that have worked in other regions across the country. So we're scaling the things that we see working, and then we want the regions to really guide the execution for maximum impact. So, and then the third thing that's changing is we are focusing on those high opportunity segments where before we had a much broader view. So we're narrowing in on the things that work to make us more effective in growing our market share. Okay, I think I'm turning over to Josh to cover our financials.
All right. Good morning, everybody. And sorry, I'm on my phone as opposed to my computer. I told a few people that earlier, so I apologize for any difficulties in hearing me. Real quick, just fly over on the financial assets. As you can see, we have just under 2 million in the checking account. The investments escrow is the 27% that the Department of Commerce holds on to. Then we have active investment account of just under $5 million for a total of 14,416,000. Next slide. And then as far as Region 5's Q1 assessments, pretty straightforward. You can see the states associated with Region 5, and $272,000 is what the Q1 assessments amounted to. All right. Turning it over to whoever's next. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, from a national perspective, you can see the breakout between design assistants, marketing codes and standards, university relations, education of design pros, and there you see it broken down specifically by our region. 130,000 in marketing, 308,000 in university relations, 55,000 in educating design professionals, 160,000 in codes and standards, and 291,000 towards the BDC and design assistants. From a program perspective, these are closed programs that we've already run through. Many of them in the past, through the initial inception of what we've done over the past couple of years, have revolved around university relations and research, as well as educating design pros, and then the design assistants through the concrete masonry building core design program. Both is closed, and we've got V2 upcoming, but in 2026. These as well are additional closed programs as well. From a codes and standards perspective, Kim had mentioned earlier that we had some really exciting things happen in terms of resilient design. Nick Lang reported out to that last week in our bi-monthly meeting. And I've got a feeling that he'll probably be sharing a little bit of that in his presentation as well. And then we'll have Jenny Tanner sharing as far as the university program update is concerned. And again, if you want to see any of the recent details, just feel free to go ahead and scan this QR code. There should be, I think, another, and perhaps I missed it, but there, in terms of current programs, we've got Masonry Week that Arturo is going to share as well upcoming, and then of course Irene will be sharing right after I finish up now on the BDC, on the Block Design Collective. I think Irene has had some tremendous success already, but she's a team of one within Region 5. Now, of course, she's got her counterparts in each of the other regions to work with. But what I think is critical here is that we look for opportunities to bring to her, and then we synergize with her to really make ourselves effective in the field. She can help to educate us on how we can really get to that point where we are truly providing enough design assistance to convert projects. It's one thing to come up with ideas on how to potentially reduce reinforcing in a given wall. It's another thing when you've got something that was designed for a completely different material and we get her in front of folks along with us to truly convert projects. That's where we really can begin to build market share.
All right, thanks, Steve. So, as you all know, the BDC is dedicated to two primary goals: educating design professionals and project assistants in order to add more blocks into projects or making block design more efficient. As Steve had mentioned, our team consists of a director associated with each region. All of our contact information is on this slide, as well as the block design website, if you'd like to reach out to any of us for any questions you may have. So the BDC is focused in on one important metric that we want to grow. That metric is blocks influence, which is the sum of the blocks added and the blocks assisted. Blocks added are when we utilize project assistance to add block into projects that were not blocked before, or a structural material that wasn't decided on. The ROI impact here is obvious, and we can quantify the amount of block and compare it to our program investment. The second piece, which is block assistance, is just as important. Blocks assisted is where we review projects that have masonry and evaluate them to ensure that they are designed as efficiently as possible. If we can save on design cost, a future RFI, or a headache, we're ensuring that block stays on the job and is left with a positive experience. Although we don't add block here, we improve the likelihood of returned use from the designer. So there is a study done that took the work of a design assistant and quantified market impact. What we found is that when we help with one project, we see that there's a tail effect that can be as long as 3 years, where the designer is likely to choose a material again due to a positive experience that they had with the design assisted project. This tail effect is the power of design assistance. So we'll take a look at an example that emphasizes the important work we do and how we trade blocks influenced. So this isn't from our region particularly, but this is a project where a producer, architectural representative identified a school addition in their market. It was not looking to be masonry, but after a conversation with the architect, the rep offered the idea to meet with the engineering team and a free service through the BDC for a preliminary design and estimate. The architect said that they didn't want to use masonry in this instance, but they agreed to hear us out. So we listened to their specific design concerns, put together a design estimate and presentation, and walked them through a masonry solution and tailored it to their needs. So it ended up being a slam dunk. And while they did not go with masonry for this specific project, since it was a little too far along in the project, what it ended up happening is fast forward to 6 months later, and the next 4 schools that this design team was working on, they ended up using masonry as their baseline decision for their projects. So while these 4 projects don't show up in our numbers or impact, they are the most important about what we do, and kind of an example of the tail effect from the blocks influence in the design assistance. And then this is kind of another example of a project that was already masonry, but a poorly designed one. The engineer in this case did not design with masonry beforehand, and it clearly showed in some of the detailing on the project. We worked through the design with the structural engineering team to make sure the masonry was laid out efficiently, and the result was 15 to 20% improvement in the design efficiency. That came from simplifying the reinforcement layout, optimizing wall configuration, and catching items in the design that would have added cost or complexity during construction. We educated them on masonry design while saving money on their project. So imagine the instance where we didn't get to talk to them and talk about this project. This would have resulted in an increased perceived cost, challenges on site, and overly negative perception of masonry by the project team. What material would they select for their next K through 12 project? We want to make sure that we catch these projects to ensure the likelihood of returned use. The more projects we can get our hands on to become more successful can ultimately help drive the industry's market share. And so please continue to pass along projects as you see in your local markets, whether it's to add block or assist on block, they have a lasting impact in your market that we can work on today. And so as we continue to get more project opportunities to influence block, we find that project influence can make a significant impact in today's market share. There are a lot of 50-50 balls out there where the structural material selection could go either way. So catching these projects early, we're working to shift those opportunities to CMU. As we continue to grow credibility and outreach, we continue to control our impact into bringing more CMU projects to the table. And as we look at the national program's growth and impact, we can utilize the metric of blocks influence to quantify the impact. We know the cost of block and we can quantify the amount of wall square footage or number of blocks, and we can quantify the market that we are directly influencing in the number of blocks influence. This is our lead metric to qualify how we're growing and how we're becoming more efficient with our dollars and ultimately the return on investment we provide back to the industry. To effectively quantify our ROI and impact, we currently utilize a study done by a competing design assistance group. However, since we're currently in the process of collecting data and feedback, the results to qualify our design assistants and demonstrate the statistical impact is still underway. This requires about 3 years of project assistance data, and as we assist on projects, we contract our influence efforts, the parties involved, and the data on the project. We put into a bucket called waiting for construction, and we'll circle back once the project has been built to interview the design team experience. This will inform an official tail effect factor. For now, we can utilize the current studies as a baseline assumption. And so our current design assistant metrics as a team is shown on the screen here. We learned about capabilities in 2025 and continue to stay nimble and pivot to the most effective efforts. These metrics do not include the significant time our team spends putting into communication with investors and leveraging to be more effective and efficient. We're right on track, as you can kind of see from the metrics to date, and see pretty significant momentum. So some of the metrics that we're tracking are kind of direct interactions with AEC professionals, projects assisted, projects influenced, the number of blocks assisted, as well as blocks added through the project assistance. And on the education side, we provide education to designers to help kind of simplify masonry design and give them opportunities to learn more how to design with masonry efficiently. So we're tracking these metrics through contact hours with AEC professionals, educational events throughout the country, as well as live continuing education units and event interacting with event attendees in person. And we still have more to do this year. So these are some of the numbers attached for national efforts, as well as regional efforts. And we anticipate resources to develop in addition to attract additional opportunities and conversations. In terms of Region 5, it's been a busy year so far. I've visited 5 states so far out of the region, and we have a number of upcoming events, both on the regional and national scale, that involve speaking opportunities and exhibiting opportunities. I think some of the big wins for us is we've been able to secure a speaking opportunity at the National Greenbuild Conference in New York in October, as well as a speaking opportunity at NCSCA in San Francisco later this year. One project I do want to touch on more recently that we've worked on came in, and this kind of discusses kind of the tail effect factor. This came in as a simple detailing question on a academic housing building in Southern California. This project entailed 720,000 square foot of new student housing on the project. And while we assisted with the one detail on the project, it actually opened up opportunities to review details for additional details throughout the project, as well as some of the firm's standard details, a lunch and learn opportunity, and another project that they brought to us. So this showcases how even one kind of good interaction with a project can lead down to more opportunities with designers. And then I do want to touch on briefly on the Block Learning Hub. As you all know, the Block Learning Hub is our free and on-demand educational platform established to provide additional resources to the AEC community. These are also open to you all as investors and industry partners to access and utilize. In terms of the strategic goals of the Block Learning Hub, we're really here dedicated to knowledge development, skill development, showcasing innovation throughout the masonry industry and industry engagement. And as we look at the roadmap of the Block Learning Hub, we officially launched just last year. This year, we've been building out our library of continuing basics, and kind of in 2027, we'll continue to grow the presentations on our basics, but begin to shift to a larger focus on industry innovation, including checkoff funded programs and case studies. And then from there onward, we'll have a larger focus on kind of case studies that will inspire the AEC community. And this is our 2026 schedule. As you saw, the latest one we had was the inherent fire resistance of concrete masonry construction. Our next one upcoming is the top 10 ways to save money on masonry construction. And there's a couple of really interesting ones throughout the rest of the year. The one that will be kind of most relevant to Region 5 will be the one hosted in November, which is seismic design in masonry structures and case studies. And lastly, I do want to talk on our Train the Trainer program. This is our program where we allow kind of producer sales teams and industry partners to access and be trained to give out our AIA presentations. So if you're interested in learning more, please reach out for any questions you may have. I will pass it on to John now for the marketing update.
That's awesome. Thanks, Irene. Nice work. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John. I'm with the Clutch Performance team. In terms of marketing, I just want to spend a minute talking about our process for how content is being created. This past year, we've really made a concerted effort to build rapport with AECs, both nationally and across Region 5. So rather than creating things in a vacuum and, oh, this sounds good. Yeah, that'll be a good thing. Push that out. Um, we don't want to talk at AECs. It's offering them a seat at our table and allowing them the opportunity to actively shape what's being put out there for our peers. So in terms of marketing and reputation and public relations, I mean, that third party validation is really what it's all about, right? Let other people talk about how great CMU is, so we don't have to be the ones doing it all the time. So this is just kind of a rundown of the people we've worked with directly to influence articles, website copy, flyers, all that stuff. So this is something, like I said, we really started to ramp up this year, and going forward are going to look to do even more of that. A perfect example of sort of this working side by side with architects and other designers was back in April. Arturo was nice enough to invite me out to CMC's Masonry Summit held out in Irvine, and I sat in on a panel, an architectural panel, and heard Lance O'Donnell is his name. He's from a company called O2 Architecture, and he talked about like practicing what he preaches. And I've worked with masonry my whole life, and I believe in it so much that I've built multiple homes of it. My family lives in CMU, and I was like, wow, that is just really interesting. And I approached him after, and we got to talking, and I kind of pitched him on this idea of what if you authored an article sort of on our behalf, and something that could run an architectural record. And this is the first time we've done anything like this in terms of literally handing over the reins and said, like, here's kind of a nugget of an idea. We want you to run with it. And what he came back with was just like, it was just on the nose. And we had a few comments for him, and he welcomed the challenge to sort of provide some more context in detail. And he just sent a note the other day saying, thanks for suggesting this topic and for the encouragement to make it deeply reflective of my personal experience. How can we help share? So it goes to show you that when you work alongside these people, right, they have some skin in the game. They have a vested interest, and they're looking to share it and promote it on their channels as well as Beauty of Block. So that's a huge plus. So I would ask everyone on this call to do the same. This article is now live. It's something you can link to and post on social or your own company newsletters, website, stuff like that. So help spread the word. Here is another example of sort of incorporating that local human perspective more as a way to tell a bigger story. So, right after the 2025 wildfires, right, which sort of dominated headlines, and we're still in the thick of it. Through Irene, we had the opportunity to connect with the design builder. Her name is Trinidad, and the homeowner there, Margot Stuber, who built back after the Eaton fire with CMU. And I believe they were the first actually to receive their certificate of occupancy. So just sort of a visible marker of there is hope going forward. But according to LA County, as of just a month or two ago, 27% of all the destroyed structures are somewhere navigating that kind of prickly permitting process, and less than 1% have completed construction since then. So, what that tells us is there's a lot of work to be done, there's a lot of decisions to be made, and there's a big opportunity for us to be part of that conversation to educate people on resilient construction and fire resistance, and not only preparing for emergency situations, but like everyday living. And it also opens the door for thermal mass and comfortability and cost savings and all that stuff. So it was nice to be able to meet Margot and Trinidad, and they're going to be featured in stuff going forward. Similar to Lance, we want to do an article that kind of showcases not just the people, but just the larger community and what they're facing and how CMU can be a solution there. Okay. So beyond those couple of articles we're working on or have since gone live, really the bulk of this year's program was digital advertising. And we saw the kind of the footprint of Region 5 earlier, right? It's a pretty big chunk. So we had a lot of ground to cover. So digital really gave us the biggest bang for like a 50,000 marketing budget this year. And digital gives us the ability to target audiences at scale. And really, it does that in three ways. So, native advertising is putting Block Design Collective or Beauty of Block advertising out into the world in places that our audience is already going. This could be Sports Illustrated, it could be Forbes, it could be the Wall Street Journal, it could be Architectural Digest. So, our message is sort of that's why they call it native. And then account-based marketing, we worked with the Block Design Collective, and we had this list of priority firms, architectural, structural engineering, contractor firms, and you're able to feed that into our system, and people that fit that email or profile were able to serve up messages to specifically those people at those firms. So you're kind of cutting out the middleman and going right to those decision makers. And then the third part is just paid advertising on social, and you're really able to do some cool things in terms of targeting and profiling with that stuff there. So that's kind of the three-headed monster in terms of advertising. The thing is, when you have an ad, it has to lead somewhere. Like, okay, tell me more. I click on it. Where does it bring you? And the options were, well, we could just send them generically to beautyofblock.com. Maybe it's to the Block Design Collective, though maybe they're not ready, like maybe they're not there in that journey. So the decision was made, let's put together a landing page specific to Region 5 that sort of has everything you would need under one roof. And it has some assets that we created last year. We were able to repurpose those. So fact sheets on embodied carbon and fire resistance. We had some project profiles there where people could learn about CMU specific to, again, the states out on the West Coast. So we've never done this for any other region. So it's kind of a learning opportunity for everyone, but it was a good way to sort of drive people to a destination that made sense for them. And in terms of performance of this landing page, right? Yeah, it's cool to see those spikes. I think what we learned the most was the native ads, right? The Forbes and the Wall Street Journals. That delivered the most impressions. That got us the widest reach. The account-based marketing accounted for the strongest engagement. So I mentioned cutting out the middleman and sort of going straight to the source. That proved to be true. And then in terms of social, that was our most efficient traffic driver from a cost per click perspective. So That's why you sort of do all these things together. You don't put all your eggs in one basket because each thing does something better than others. So it's nice to kind of have that balance. And we know, like, well, one more thing I would just add to this. Like, right, you get some clicks, you get some impressions. We know that these metrics aren't the finish line, but I will say it's an early indicator that we are reaching and engaging the right audience. But I think back to what Irene was saying, the real measure, kind of that tail effect, is whether those interactions lead to stronger relationships, more design assistance opportunities, and ultimately more projects influenced over time. So going forward, we're working with a new software platform that allows you to cross-reference some of this digital activity with priority segments, priority firms, and you start to connect the dots. So you can see, oh, this person might be a strong candidate for more education because they downloaded XYZ form. So again, it's early in the going, but it starts to make more sense and the dots start to connect the longer you do it. And then my last plug here is we've started to populate a new local projects page on Beauty of Block. It's up in the main header. I want to say we have upwards of 40 project profiles completed throughout the regions. Like I said, it's just starting to get populated now. So over the next week or two, you'll see more of those there. I would say Region 5 is well represented, but it's one of those the more the merrier situations. So if you have a project that you're especially proud of, or maybe there's already some form of case study done on it, we'd love to feature that stuff. And that's part of our scope is to connect with local producers, get the AEC perspective, and make sure that this stuff is highlighted. The cool thing about this new page is you're able to filter it by region and also by project type. So if you're looking for just things in your neck of the woods, you can do that. If you're looking for K-12 schools or public buildings, commercial, whatever, you can do that. And then you can also download or link directly to that project. So versus just going to the general site, if you're like, hey, so and so, check this out. You know, we were featured in this, you can send them that exact thing. So makes it easy for sharing, and we look forward to stockpiling a bunch more with you.
All right, I think I get to talk next. I always hate going after John because he does such a good job. But I did want to talk with you guys just a little bit about updates relative to some code provisions. If you don't know me, my name is Nick Lang, VP of Engineering for the Concrete Masonry and Hardscapes Association. So, what's going on? Over the past several years, there have been some efforts to introduce resilient design pathways into our building codes. And this isn't specifically, these resilient design things are not specifically for masonry, but obviously the ability, of masonry to, participate and meet some of these requirements is necessary. So in short, funding from Checkoff, RAC 5, as well as some national efforts and some other funding partners have enabled us to get masonry provisions in some of these functional recovery design programs that are working their way through the codes. You can go to the next slide. And quickly, what is functional recovery? So it's really a measure of how quickly a building can be put back into use. And generally where this has gotten started is on the earthquake side of things, the seismic events. Currently, if you look to design a building to current building codes, we're really looking at life safety, making sure occupants don't die or severely injured in those things. But that can lead to buildings that, while they don't fall down, could become, really damaged and take a long time to get back and to be used again. So what functional recovery is looking at is not just life safety, but also how quickly can that building get back into functioning. And so the codes really define these different functional recovery categories and then the performance objectives. At the highest level, we have buildings that need to be functional immediately, right? Think hospitals, fire stations, police, that sort of thing, community shelters. And then we have ones down on the far side where there aren't target times, and these could be things that are less critical structures. But a designer would choose their functional recovery category, and then they would work to design it to meet those performance objectives. And this kind of shows you what it looks like on the masonry side, right? Functional recovery level A after an extreme event, you would hardly have any cracking and the building would be functioning exactly the way it should be, all the way down to level E where we have an extreme event. And while the building has not fallen down or has not had any issues, there is going to be extensive repair necessary before it's safe to be used again. So you can design kind of all within the entire spectrum. So what did we do? Well, we partnered with an expert in this area. The group is called the Resilient Design Coalition. It's really headed up by a professor from Cal State Chico named Kurt Hazelton. And he has a group that looks at designing these things. And they did two pretty comprehensive non-linear evaluations of design masonry structures. One is for general load-bearing CMU, special reinforced shear walls. And then we had another one that was looking more for rigid wall, flexible diaphragm buildings. So think warehouses and that sort of thing. So we did those two different studies and research that built into creating design provisions. Next slide. And so masonry did really well, and I'm not going to have the time to dive into this. But essentially, what's been created is these different design parameters that are slightly different on seismic design if you want to design at that higher functional recovery level. And then it really showed that those studies showed that design to our current codes are very resilient. If you wanted to go to the most extreme levels of functional recovery like A and B, you do have to be a little bit more a little bit more robust. However, that's kind of across the board with all different types of things. And I'd say in general, it takes less to be resilient with concrete masonry than some of the other structures out there. So finally, in order to kind of wrap this up a little bit, just want to tell you where we are. So these modeling studies that were funded went into developing new code provisions, and they've been approved by this group called the Building Seismic Safety Council, and it will be in their what they call the NEHRP, National Earthquake Hazard Prevention Program provisions, will be published this year. What is really going on that will get this into the codes, though, it's currently being balloted by the American Society of Civil Engineers for their ASCE 7 document, which is what tells people how to put loads on their buildings across the board for all different types of loads. Pretty certain that's going to be in there. We're working through the last bit of that, and then that will then be re-referenced by the 2030 International Building Code. So it's an example of why the codes take so long, but it's also a great example of how collective industry involvement can get the research necessary in order to get us those provisions into the code, so then we can work to tell designers they're there as well as take advantage of them with masonry. So apologies for being quick, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end, but appreciate the support from RAC 5 on this one. And I think I'm turning it over to Jenny for University Relations.
Thanks, Nick. I'm pleased to share a report on our educational grant. So part of this educational grant, we really capitalized on the fact that students are visual learners. So we developed a set of labs. In our labs, we did split tension of a block. You can see this in the upper right corner. Down below, we've got a student and the TA breaking a prism in compression, and then breaking a single block in compression. And then we have a prism break over here on the lower left here. And you can see the prism after failure right on the bottom and in the center. Why do we care so much about labs? Well, if students understand how materials behave, and they have a fundamental understanding of why the code was written, now code changes can come, and these engineers are not thrown for a loop. They can say, oh yeah, that was a tension-controlled failure, and this code makes sense. In addition, we provide homework and exams for faculty to use or modify to make their own. All of this type of material takes a lot of extra time to develop. Our materials have been reviewed by UC Boulder, Donald Harvey, in a masonry class revival, And I'm also responding to comments from Jason Thompson on an official CMU checkoff review. Now, if we take a look at the notes, we have a couple thoughts. Down here on the lower left, this is an example of board notes. Students who need to be doing something with their hands. If you think about like a little fidget spinner or something like that, many students learn best when they are learning kinesthetically, meaning they're doing something. So here, what we do is we give what's called a skeleton note, and we have some of the main topics written down, but students kind of fill in the gaps. And this here is a board note. You'll notice a consistency in color. You've got purple for the headings. Then you've got action verbs in the green. Things like this help students organize the thoughts, and they don't even realize they're doing it. Another way that I think is essential for teaching is to start with the free body diagram. If we look at a typical beam, we've got our beam here. Our blue is our block, and grout is light blue. Steel is orange. We've got the force here, and then we've got an equivalent stress block up here on the top. Now, we also have solutions written out in MathCAD. The beauty of MathCAD is you can say D equals your number of courses times 8-inch minus 1.5-inch, the diameter, that would be your cover, and then the bar diameter. So if students can see the comps written out with equations, they make a natural association with the equations and the answers. Finally, I've had the privilege to work with Colorado School of Mines, Kara Phillips, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, Nikki Buck, Oregon State University, I've reached out to Luke Scoggins, and UC Boulder, Donald Harvey. It's really important to have a resource for masonry so that when instructors are getting ready for their class tomorrow and they come up with a question, they can get answers to the questions and provide the best possible classes. Finally, I'd like to emphasize that this is the focus area of structural engineering, so classes and structures. Other classes that exist out there would be architectural classes, focusing more on details, and then construction management, how to build things. So these are three separate areas. It is challenging to start up a new class. It's challenging because we need technical expertise. What class might not be offered as much in order to offer masonry? That is a very political, sticky wicket. And then finally, universities have enrollment considerations. It is not cost effective for a full-time faculty member to teach to 3 students. So, these universities need to fill up their classes. We are currently in discussions with UC Davis about a potential class. I'm open to contacts and suggestions. Finally, I met with the construction management group at University of California, Pomona, and they have a different focus as opposed to the structural engineering. Again, all good things to invest in, but just as a reminder, this is a structural engineering grant and class where materials are being developed. That's what I've got. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Arturo.
Thank you, Jenny. Good morning, everybody. My name is Arturo Pinal. I am the Executive Director of California Masonry Council, and I'm here to talk to you about Masonry Week. So this is a new program. We're excited to partner with the Concrete Masonry Checkoff and co-fund this educational program. And this is about connecting with the students. How do we change the future? We connect with the students. We bring masonry closer to them, and this is a program that is designed to be easily replicated and scaled. Our inaugural Masonry Week is ready for USC. The students, the attendees that we are targeting here is a group of mixed students from architectural program, civil engineering, members of the USC Viterbi School of Engineering, CMAA, DBIA, ASCE, student chapters. We're targeting and expecting 70 to 100 students to attend each of these sessions. And this is important because we do partner with the professors. So we try to focus and build the content of the program on high quality content that is also aligned with their own learning objectives. Next, please. So this is a program that features overlooked topics and also breaks paradigms of the traditional perception of masonry. We bring what are our own high priority topics and mix that content with their own so that we fit the program into their own curriculum. This is we also provide access to technical resources for the students and professors so that we can build and strengthen school relationships with AEC programs in California. Next, please. So how do we do this? We bring exceptional case studies to the students. We teach them, but we also aim to influence and inspire the new generation of designers. What we want to do is change the future. And how do we do that? We bring exceptional cases to them. We bring the architects that design them, and we bring real life case studies to them. Next, please. So this program is one session each day of the week. We do this after hours of school, so we do not interfere with the curriculum, and it's easier for students to attend. The program includes scholarships. These scholarships are intended to incentivize attendance for students, so we have a mix of award-winning architecture, green building, sustainability, which are high priority topics for us and also for decision-making teams of specifying materials in California. We have one of the confirmed sessions is Stephen Chang from CGF Architects. Next, please. We have a session that is Design Build to be confirmed. We have Heidi Jandres. We do have Lance O'Donnell, who John mentioned before. And we also have this session, which is from a student competition that we held during our last event. And we had a competition about schematic design, and one of the winners from USC is working with our technical manager to develop the next phase of that project into design development and engineering and constructability. This program is meant to be an ongoing program. This will be our inaugural one, and we're already working to have one at UC Berkeley, and the next one at College of the Canyons in California. So this is very exciting for us. We look forward to continue this program. We thank RAC5 for the support. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arturo. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Alicia Hodges, and I'm the Checkoff Program Director. Thanks so much for joining us today. Before I go, which I only have a couple minutes here, I just wanted to say a real quick thank you to both Joe Kerrigan and Tom Finch, as they were our inaugural RAC 5 chair and vice chair, and now handing off to Steve LeClaire and Josh Hammer, who are just off to a great start. So thank you. And then also thank you so much to the program leads who are out there doing the work. And I get a chat with regularly about the programs in Region 5. So thank you to them. All right, Megan, let's hit the next slide. So we really want your guys' involvement. If you feel comfortable and have permission, we'd love to share our communications and messaging with your databases. So let us know if that's something you're interested in. We'd love to share our message through you guys. We know we shared a lot about the Block Learning Hub and the Block Design Collective. We would love for you to share those resources out with the people that you know. So there are two great resources for you. We send out routine CMC updates, so if you can, share those with other producers, team members, and other industry partners. And then enroll in the Train the Trainer, so you have access to all of those presentations that Irene shared and are able to go give those. And then we'd love for you to share our Beauty of Block logo on your website or link to our Beauty of Block website. So that would be wonderful. We do have a producer portal. Many of the resources we spoke about today are included in the producer portal. So I'm going to pause for just a moment. If you can, please scan that and get signed up for the producer portal. All right, upcoming meetings. August 26th, we have a virtual session about concrete masonry outreach. We will cover our national program and how you can get plugged into that. The 16th, a codes and standards session, and then our board meeting November 4th and 5th in DC. The RAC 5 meeting is September 28th and 29th in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. We would love to have you attend. And I'm going to turn it back over to Steve to handle the Q&A portion. We have just a couple of minutes, but if you guys have questions, throw those into the Q&A and we can try to get those answered for you.
All right. Hey, everybody. First of all, I want to thank all the presenters and both our national staff and everybody that was involved from a Region 5 perspective. As you can see, there's a lot going on. And as I said before, at the end of the day, we don't have all the ideas. We need to hear from you folks as well in terms of what's working, what's not working, what we may be able to do better in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions and hopefully we'll have some answers and some future discussion as well. Okay, we've got a question. Can we see a breakdown of what percentage of assessments come from which states in the region? I don't know that we've got it by state, but we've got it by district within the region, and we can go ahead and share that with the group for sure. Anybody else? All right. Well, as Alicia said, we've got our in-person meeting coming up at the end of September on the 28th and the 29th in Utah. There is a virtual board meeting to review budgets, I believe this week, and we're going to have a little bit better direction as to what we've got to work with as we go into 2027. I think the changes that and the refinement that Kim talked about at the beginning of our session in terms of really, first of all, targeting, ways to build share through changes in codes and standards, through marketing, through education, ultimately transitioning to converting projects into masonry. It is going to be a great strategy for us, and it's giving us a little bit of cohesiveness as we look at program moving forward. You know, one of the things we're working on right now, Adam has headed up a group to review AIA and SEA opportunities for us to get in front of folks from an education perspective and really start to partner with some of those folks that can drive our materials forward in the future. You know, that's just one example of what we're looking at for 2027. So again, if anybody's got any ideas, feel free to share them with your teammates that are part of the board, or share them with me directly. But by all means, reach out and know that you as investors are part of this organization. This organization is you as well. And we look forward to everything we can accomplish for the balance of 26 and into 27.